even though you know me, I'm just going to do a quick intro for those that might watch later. My name's Michelle Zelli, and I'm a coach. I've been a coach for 20 years, and I really straddle everything from the boardroom through to the shamanic campfire. So that's working, whether it's working with medicine or working with hardcore business. One of the joys of my role is that it is different every day, and it keeps me on my toes, because whatever my client brings, whatever you bring to the party, my job is to be able to help you with it. And if I don't know, I learn. I learn very quickly, thank goodness. As ever, I just want to reassure you that I have nothing to sell. I don't have a book, I don't have a program, and I can't take any more clients. So what I am doing is just building a video library of my work so that it's available for those who want it free on YouTube. Can I just have a show of hands as to how you're feeling today? Because today I'm going to talk about feelings. As I say, you can bring anything else to the party, but let's talk about feelings because they run the show, whether we like it or not. Feelings dictate our behavior and our actions, okay? So how many people are feeling good? Everybody, okay. Now I'm not just going to deal with the good feelings and this little inverted comma, it says to you, well, hang on a minute, why is she doing that around good? The reason I do that is that good and bad, if you like, are terms that I try and avoid in coaching. I'm using them because they're common parlance, but in reality, when we go into good or bad, right or wrong, we're in judgment. And as soon as we go into judgment, we stop learning. And when we stop learning, we start to shrink, okay? So what we want to ask ourselves is, does this serve me or not? So it's as simple as that. Okay, does this take me closer to who I want to be, or does it take me away from who I want to be or where I want to be? So what are feelings and what are emotions? Feelings are emotions stirring. So you have the emotion, which is the energy in motion. So you have a stirring, and the feeling is the sensation that creates. Now, human beings are wired to respond to feelings, okay? So if something feels good, hi Megan, if something feels good, you're going to do it more. You're going, why do we do things that hurt us? What, for instance, alcohol, drugs, sugar, chocolate, whatever. We all know that they're not good for us. Why do we do them? Because they change our feelings, okay? And so if there's something that doesn't feel good, we'll move away from it. And if something that does feel good, we'll move towards it. Now that is the natural state of a human being, okay? What I'm saying here is, I want you to start to think about what a feeling gets you to do. Every time you behave in a way that you wish you didn't, whether that's eating something, drinking something, smoking something, whatever, it's because you're trying to change the way you feel, okay? Now, I'm not here to tell you something's good or bad, right or wrong. All I'm going to ask you to do is say, is this who I want to be? Does this serve me? Does it serve my greater purpose? Is that making sense? Can I have, yeah, everybody nodding? Anybody that it's not making sense to? Okay, so far so good. So when you get a feeling, the idea is that you stop and identify the emotion behind the feeling. Of course we don't, because we want to either get more of the feeling or move away from the feeling. And it's become an automatic response. It's a knee-jerk response, okay? So if you've got a habit or an addiction, and we all have an addiction, it's just what the addiction is, it's designed specifically to move you out of a feeling, okay? And as I'm going to repeat myself, that's why so many addictions are toxic. We will fill ourselves with poison rather than feel the feeling we don't want to feel. And that feeling is often emptiness. So what is the emotion around emptiness? Shame. Okay, and I'm going to talk much more about shame because it's probably the most problematic emotion that a human being can deal with, and most people are disconnected from their toxic shame. Most clients that I work with, it's the first thing that I go to, because if I can identify and attach them to their toxic shame, then we're motoring forward. What happens when you feel something? When you feel an emotion, what do? Let's say anger, for instance. What do you do when you feel angry? Do you push it down? Do you eat it down? A lot of people's food addictions are because they eat their emotions into submission. Okay, remember that's what an addiction is. Okay, addictions are emotionally driven. So when you feel angry, what do you say to yourself? Do you say, I shouldn't feel like this. I shouldn't be angry. Angry girls are bad. Now, you know the gig. They say that a man who's scared is weak and a woman that's angry is a bitch. Okay, angry women in society have historically been put down. And it's crazy because we've got 8 major emotions, and every human being, every healthy human being feels every emotion because they've got a need. They're trying to tell you something. They're your best buddies. And today I'm going to explain to you what they're telling you and how to translate that into your life. Bearing in mind that your life is driven by feelings anyway, isn't it incredible that we get to the age of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and we haven't mastered what feelings are and how to use them to our greatest good when they run the show? I still find that extraordinary. I still find it extraordinary that people parent and not thinking about how to educate their children in emotional intelligence. If you don't have that, the intellectual intelligence actually gets wasted. Harvard Business School have done a very, very deep survey, and they actually put 80% of success to emotional intelligence. And the people with high IQ without a high EQ, and this is over a 50-year span, they've been doing this research, they do not get the same roles. They do not have the same success. So whether you're just looking at having a better life or feeling better or self-mastery or life mastery, or you're looking at success, understanding your emotions and your feelings is absolutely crucial. Nobody wants to be a slave to them. So there I am feeling angry, okay? The first thing I want to do is I just want to stop and feel it. Where do I feel it in my body? Your body is where you feel your feelings, not your head. So when I say to somebody, where do you feel that? And they say my head, I immediately know they're disconnected from their body. And when somebody's disconnected from their body, they can no longer trust themselves because they've lost what we call intuition. They've lost their connection with who they really are. So the first thing, if you're going to master your feelings, is to make sure that you're in your body. And to do that, very, very simple, breathe. Breathe into your body with your feet flat on the ground. So sit in a chair, feet on the floor. You always want to be grounded, earthed. And you breathe into your body and you connect to how your body feels. You then notice, I can see Sasha practicing that just there. You then notice, well, what am I feeling? Now, as I'm doing this, I'm feeling a stirring in my solar plexus. And my solar plexus is just about 3 inches above my navel. So who is it that can feel a stirring in their solar plexus? Is it you, Sasha? It's not. Okay, maybe it's mine. It's unusual. Okay, so I'm asking myself, what is that feeling I can feel? Your body is your radar, okay? So whatever you're feeling, don't judge it, accept it, welcome it, let it come up. Every feeling in your body is trying to serve you. It's trying to guide you on the path to your highest and best self. But when we deny the emotion, repress the emotion, what's happening is we're cutting off from that inner wisdom, and it causes an awful lot of trouble. So talked about disconnecting from it. Now we usually disconnect from feelings when we're young. If we've got very emotional parents, there's no space in the room or in the house for our feelings or our emotions. And frankly, we'll be scared of emotions because they're what's called uncontained. In other words, they're spilling their emotions out over everybody. And that's not okay. If you're angry, you contain your anger. It's not okay to spill it out over others. That's a boundary that they should put, but also a boundary for us as good human beings. So disconnection is the number one issue, and that's something that we've taught ourselves. So often in coaching, I have to get somebody to be able to reconnect with their emotions by feeling what they feel. And normally there's a fear around that. I'm scared of my feelings. But if your feelings are your signposts and you're scared to feel them and you block them out, it's like driving from London to Glasgow without a signpost, without sat nav. You're going to be all over the shop. So you're much, much better feeling and getting used to welcoming your emotions. Now, the next thing is, if you don't disconnect, is that you might numb. I reckon that most of us numb feelings at some time. Pretty much all feeling, all out of balance response to feelings started in your childhood. Not all, but the vast, vast majority, okay? So remember, if your parents flooded you with feelings, with emotions, if they were hyper emotional, then you would have shrunk back. And if they were unemotional, the chances are you would have learned and you would have picked that up too. You've not been shown how to handle emotions, how to process emotions. And we often attract a partner, by the way, that mirrors the opposite sex parents' emotional habits and patterns. So how do we numb out? It's with work addiction, social media addiction, food addiction, drink addiction, worry addiction, busy addiction, learning addiction, reading addiction. Those of you that work with me know that I'm known for banning learning and books, because all that happens is people think that's doing the work. It's not doing the work. It's reading. It's not the same thing. Okay, so I really want you to get your head around that. I know it's a bit controversial, but it's changed a lot of people's lives. So some of them are called clean addictions. So exercise, for instance, is a clean addiction. It's a healthy addiction, but it's still going to numb you out. One of the signs when somebody comes to me, I always say, well, what's the catalyst? Why are you here? And often it's because they're no longer able to do their running or their cycling. So those are outlets for emotions, but they mean that we're not processing them. I'm not saying that running's bad, by the way. I'm saying that anything that's stopping you feeling needs to be moderated so you can let those feelings come up. Also, the other thing we can do with feelings is we project them onto others. And this is very, very common, and we've normalized it. So when somebody says, you made me feel, you've immediately given all your power away, because nobody can make you feel anything. If you didn't feel it already, they could not create it. Does that make sense? If I don't have anger inside of me, you can squeeze me and there's no anger going to come out. I have a whole load of different, excuse me, I have a whole load of different options as to how I respond to you. So if you come in and you stamp on my toe, I could laugh. I could bound you and say, hey, it's great to see you, but please don't stamp on my toe. I could punch you. I could throw my toys out of the pram and have a tantrum. I could burst into tears. I could feel ashamed that you hate me. Can you see how I have a whole host of responses at my disposal? Those responses aren't about you, they're about me. I cannot and will not blame you for my response. Okay? So if you are often angry, it's because you've got unprocessed anger. If you're often embarrassed and shy and in shame, it's because you've got unprocessed shame. And on we go. Okay? So you'll see that angry people, for instance, will find things to hook their anger onto. So we've got road ragers. Road ragers are very popular. Do you know why? Because we're contained in our own little metal box. Nobody can get to us because we're locked. And so we can be really brave and we can rage and rage and rage, okay? The reality is that you're never going to heal the rage because you're projecting it, not processing it. And this is the bit that is crucial. Most people who are into drama, who are very, very sad or depressed, they don't process it, they project it. It's a huge difference. Does that differentiator make sense to you? Anybody it doesn't make sense to? No? Okay, I shall continue. So, feelings are your best friends, okay? If you welcome a feeling, sorry, I just thought the dog was going to bark there. When a feeling comes up, you probably have the habit of talking to yourself. Oh God, I'm feeling that again. Oh, you can't be angry. That's just wrong. Just, for God's sake, just calm down. Oh, look at you being a boo baby or a cry baby. Just pull yourself together. Oh God, I'm really scared. What's the matter with me? Nobody else is scared. Those are the sort of things, and much, much worse, that we say to ourselves, okay? Now, all that happens is the feeling will try and hide, okay? Feelings are very, very clever. Now, once that feeling hides, it takes a lot to get it back. But what will happen is your unconscious mind will create situations, people, and events to come towards you to bring up that trigger. So supposing that you've got unresolved grief, what's going to happen is you're going to attract more and more and more loss because your unconscious mind wants you to heal that particular emotion, okay? If you've got unprocessed anger, guess what? You're going to attract things and people and events that make you angry. You'll notice it, now that I've mentioned it, if you happen to just take any of your friends or family, and you'll notice that certain people attract things over and over again. The things will be different, but the emotion that they create is the same. Okay? Feelings can be scary. So let's just lay that on the table. As natural as they are, because some people are allergic to their feelings. I see a lot of clients that are allergic to feelings when I meet them. And what they do is they disassociate. They stay in their head, they fantasize, analyze, and catastrophize, FAC, they fact themselves, okay? Fantasize can be positive fantasy, negative fantasy. Analyze, I've got to solve this problem, I've got to know the truth, where does this come from? And the further somebody gets into the work and the more scary it gets, the more they want to know the answers. I can't do the work, Michelle, until I know what that means. That's just your ego playing tricks with you, okay? You do not need to know. You need to feel, okay? Can you see the difference? Know is there, feel is here. Now, yes, of course, I can feel in my heart and I can feel in my gut, but if you need a solution, if you need to know the answer, your ego is at play. Just allow yourself to feel and you'll see the difference. So I'm now going to go through what each feeling is telling you. Okay, every single feeling that you have, every single emotion that you have is a signpost. So the first one I'm going to work with is fear. Now, there are two kinds of fear. There's real fear. There's a lion in my garden. Best I don't go and sunbathe. That's real fear. Fear. Okay. But actually, most of the fear that consumes your life isn't real. And I'm going to talk about anxiety separately. They're different things. Fear means that you have left yourself vulnerable, or you believe unconsciously that you've left yourself vulnerable somewhere down the line. The way that I say it is that you've left the gate open somewhere, okay? So the first thing you do, if you feel fear in your body, you identify where you feel it. You then ask yourself, where have I left myself exposed or vulnerable? Okay? If there, and if you have, then you take action. If there is nowhere that you have left yourself exposed or vulnerable, then you know that the chances are that this is the kind of fear that is not healthy, okay? Fear is addictive, and there are many, many fear addicts, and what they do is they create catastrophes in their head, and your brain does not know the difference between fact and fiction. So if we go to the cinema and we watch a horror movie, even though Brad Pitt's in it, and we can know that it's ketchup for blood, we still get scared. And we're still scared, by the way, for days. If it's a really scary movie, we're jumpy for days, aren't we? Because the brain thinks it's real. Think about porn. I mean, billions of hits every month for porn. Most of it isn't real, but the brain doesn't believe that. So you still get the physical response. The point of fear is to let you know that you may be vulnerable or in danger. But if you have catastrophized and you've allowed yourself to become a fear addict, you've become addicted to the chemicals. And every time you have a fearful thought, 50 plus chemicals are spurted into your body from your adrenal glands that sit on top of your kidneys. Most of us have got adrenal fatigue as a result of that, okay? And let's be honest, the world has become scary. There is a lot of justified fear around. So this is one of the reasons I say to you, be really careful what you watch on the news. Be really careful what you listen to and what you tolerate on Facebook. Don't be scared to cull, okay? Your mental health, your emotional health is more important than offending somebody. And you could just say, your conspiracy theories just aren't my gig. So, I'm going to mute you for a while. So that's fear. Anxiety, at least 90% of the clients I see with debilitating anxiety have emotions underneath which are unprocessed. Anxiety is the wall we put over emotions we don't want to feel. In fact, I don't think I've ever met an anxious client that we haven't been able to take out of anxiety within a couple of weeks, most within a couple of sessions. Okay, it's simply building up their confidence to tap into the emotions that go under the anxiety. Okay, anxiety is a very physical feeling. It's a shortness of breath. It feels, you can go lightheaded. And of course, you then get anxious that you're not going to come out of the anxiety. But as I say, once I can get people in their body and processing the emotions that are under the anxiety, then we're up and away. So don't feed it. Once you feel anxious, ask yourself, what lies beneath this anxiety? What's the emotion that I'm feeling? And it's often grief, sometimes rage, unprocessed rage that we're scared of, and under rage is almost always shame. Okay? So the reason that we stick with anxiety is that it's more understandable for us, because if we go into shame, what the hell do we do with it? And also there are two types of shame that I'm going to go into shortly. Okay, everybody still with me? Just some nods. Yeah, okay, thank you, Lily. That was a lovely nod. So we've done fear, we've done anxiety. Now we're going to come to anger. Anger is the only emotion that's going to make you feel stronger. There's a reason for that. Just as there's a reason for everything. Nature doesn't make mistakes. We just misinterpret that. The reason that anger makes you stronger is that it's designed so that you either protect yourself physically, supposing somebody's attacking you or your kids, you want to have the power And you've seen when somebody is angry, they actually are stronger than when they're not angry. So it really, you probably seen the stories of people lift up cars and all sorts of incredible feats. And it's doing that because it's A, to protect you for survival, okay, but B, so that you have the strength to put a boundary down. Okay, anger means you are not getting your needs met. It's as simple as that. When you're angry, you are perceiving that your needs are not being met. Okay? Maybe somebody's trodden on your values tail. So know your values, and if somebody has not, for instance, one of my values is appreciation, being appreciated. If I'm not appreciated, I know I get angry because value is a need that must be met. And so my job is, when I get angry, is to check I'm being reasonable, because I know that I've got a hair trigger with that one. And this is part of what self-mastery is understanding. You then know when you're being reasonable, when you're being rational, and when you're being anything but. And that's not to tell yourself off or judge yourself badly. It's to help you behave in a way you're proud of and become the human being you want to be. Anger often doesn't feel good. And as I said earlier, particularly for women, we can feel very guilty when we do get angry. Anger is not the same as rage. Okay? How do you process healthy anger? It's a really important question that anybody on a self-mastery journey needs to know. Okay? Raging is uncontained anger. And unless you are under physical threat, it really isn't a great idea. It will scare people, it will scare yourself, and it sure as hell will scare your inner children. And that then is going to lead to a whole host of other things. Okay? So if you feel rage and you've not been physically threatened, you have a whole bucket of anger inside you that needs to be worked upon. And notice the triggers that bring it up. Okay? Shame. Now, shame is a really tricky one. Two types of shame. There's healthy shame and toxic shame. Healthy shame is when you behave in a way that you shouldn't. So walking down Bond Street and Rachel says to me after a bottle of fizz, come on, let's go and do some shoplifting in Chanel, because she's like that. Why don't we do it? Because the shame of being caught immediately flashes through our mind. Okay? Healthy shame is designed to keep you a good person, humble and relational. Toxic shame is a whole different ballgame. Okay? And I'm going to do a piece on that separately. So there's shame and there's guilt. The difference between shame and guilt is shame, I am a bad person. Guilt is I've done a bad thing. Okay? So guilt, I feel guilty because last night I drank too much and I said something I shouldn't. That's an appropriate feeling. That feeling is saying to you, you might have amends to make. You might want to moderate how much you drink when you're with those people, whatever it is, okay? So when you feel guilty, just track back and say, okay, what is it I've done that I shouldn't really have done, and how do I make amends? Sadness is perceived loss. Okay? Grief is extreme sadness. And one of the greatest roots of sadness and grief is people losing their Disney story. So I worked with a client for the first time a couple of weeks ago. And when I met her online, I was doing an interview, a meeting prior to make sure we were a good fit. I said, and she told me that she had a lot of anxiety. She said, I said, have you ever had that in the past? Did you have a scary childhood? She said, no, absolutely not. She said, no, I had a perfect childhood. All my little ears prick up when somebody says that. As soon as somebody says they've got a perfect marriage, perfect childhood, a perfect child, a perfect parents, I know they're in la la land and they're going to deal with grief, because grieving is often where we shatter the fantasy. Okay? Children are taught that good kids never speak badly of their parents. And one of the hardest things for my clients is to open up about some of the parenting that wasn't that great. It's not to shame the parents. It's actually, nothing about the parents. It's about my client. But we're conditioned that we must be loyal and toe the party line. The problem with that is we throw ourselves under the bus in the process. Nobody's a perfect parent. There's no such thing. So I want you to think about where you're in happy clappy land. I've got another client that is really blocking out all of the COVID and the world news and what have you. It's la, 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 fiddling around with a few conspiracy theories and wonders why she's in anxiety the whole time. Guess what? She's in denial. Okay, her fear is coming up to say, look, you're not protecting yourself. There's shit going down here, but you're la, la, la-ing. Okay, so it's that la, la land. If you are not getting real, then you are disassociating from the reality and your emotions will get higher and higher and higher. Okay, it's a really important part of sadness and grief that people don't realize. It's shattering your illusions. When a relationship ends, it's or often, it's not grieving for that other person, it's grieving for the fantasy of the relationship. The love addicts amongst us, so we're all going, yeah. Joy, love, we like those emotions. Okay, they're high vibe. Those of you that work metaphysically, that work with the universe, know that the more high vibe you are, the more high vibe you attract. And you'll see this where somebody's a drama queen, you'll see them keep attracting drama. When you see somebody that it just sort of seems to live in this wonderful bubble of love and light, they attract more of that too. So joy and love, the problem is that if you shut down your capacity for fear, anger, shame, you're also shutting down your capacity for joy and love. Unfortunately, you can't pick and choose. You're either open to emotion or you're not open to emotion, okay? So my suggestion is, a human being, we are emotional creatures. We're spiritual, emotional creatures in a physical form. In order to be fully formed, we must be in kilter with our emotions. Happiness, kind of the same as joy and love, bring it on. But if you think that you should be in joy, happiness and love all of the time, think again. That's not when you grow. That's not the purpose of life. The purpose of life is for you to grow through your karma and for you to leave old wounding behind. So hopefully you don't take them on to the next place that we go to. But also so that you can heal yourself in this lifetime and have a better quality of life, be a more fulfilled human being. And think about that word, fulfilled, inside, feeling full inside. Many of us that had dodgy childhoods have struggled with emptiness inside, and that causes also untold issues. So what we want to do is we want to learn to fill ourselves with our true emotions, and with a bit of luck, that is a little bit of luck and a lot of skill, that's going to be primarily joy, love, happiness. Okay, and it starts with self-love, by the way. You cannot have external love. You cannot feel true external love unless there's self-love. Okay, it's impossible. So toxic shame, that happy little number, it is the absolute bitch out of the realm of emotions. Okay, toxic shame almost always is from childhood. It's from not feeling uniquely loved by each parent. So you might have felt wrong, you might have felt criticized, the parent may have been depressed, therefore not showing up for you, you may have been adopted. Even if you've been adopted into the most loving of families, most adoptees carry toxic shame because their first parents gave them away. They were unwanted, okay? Toxic shame will keep you small. It will keep you in unhealthy relationships, especially with yourself. It will keep you in fear. It will often raise anxiety. It will keep you disconnected. Remember at the beginning here, I was talking about disconnection. The reason that if you've got toxic shame, you're going to be disconnected is because the feeling of it, when toxic shame floods you, you're going to feel that too. It's like you literally disappear. And you disappear into the shittiest black hole imaginable. There's no feeling like it. Derivatives of toxic shame are embarrassment. If you go red very easily, when you're very shy, when you feel worthless. By the way, we date at the level of our self-esteem. So I can absolutely show you the level of my growth through my dating history. And though some of you know me very well, will know that's absolutely true. And I've got a big smile on my face. I just hope none of my exes are watching. But dear Lord, I mean, I just have to show myself enormous compassion. And that, you know, and I'm really serious about that. You know, when you look back and you've dated badly or you behave badly or whatever it is, and certainly my life was a shit show for a long, long time. It didn't look particularly like that on the outside, but certainly was on the inside. Looking back, it's really important to understand it was the best we could do at the time. We didn't wake up in the morning and say, do you know what, I'm going to be really stupid and I'm going to fall in love with somebody that's a real bastard or whatever it is. What we do is we're operating out of our wounding. We didn't have the heat, we hadn't healed. So lots of love to your past selves. We talk a lot about inner child work, but don't forget your inner adult work too. So going back to a time in your adulthood where you really let yourself down in a way, go back to that you and do the same process as inner child. Just show her love, just, you know, really try and understand why she did or he did what they did. And let them off the hook. You know, that was a 10-year process for me. I've had so many, you know, I've done so many ridiculous things and had so many awful partners and this kind of thing. I had to go into every single one and really apologize to myself and show enormous compassion. Excuse me, Lily. Enormous compassion to that me. Toxic shame. So it's rooted in childhood, worthless humiliation. Often you feel paralysis as well. Those of you who get that, it's like you're the rabbit in the headlights. That's what shame feels like. It floods you. The worthlessness will follow, and you'll always settle for less than the best. You do not feel worthy. Okay, so you can see it's a real nasty emotion. It also causes the sympathetic nervous system to activate. Now, what that means in layman's terms is it puts you in fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So you're going to be arsey and bitchy and gunning for a fight. You're going to be distracted and distant, flight. Or you're going to be freeze. Remember, rabbit in the headlights. Just, what do I do here? Just absolutely don't know where to go. And fawn is you're going to be a people pleaser. People pleasing is a normal response to toxic shame, because if I please people, they won't see the inside of me. They won't see what a dreadful human being I am. So it's a whole load of fun, isn't it, this toxic shame? You're going to feel exposed. And there's something called a big kahuna. Now, the big kahuna is where somebody who's got toxic shame, their humanity, their imperfection is spotlit by another human being or a situation, and their shame rises up, and it's so unpalatable that they rage their way out of it. And they justify this rage. And I know some of the nicest people that have this pattern. So what's happening is that the shame comes up, I don't want to feel it, so I'm now going to justify why I'm going to rage. So it's your fault that I'm behaving like a bitch troll from hell, okay? And I am going to rage all over you. It's going to be horrendous. What happens after that is that the person who's big kahoonaing calms down, they then have a shame attack. So they then go into worthless, hopeless, helpless, and off the cycle goes again, never dealing with the actual underlying cause, which is toxic shame. I'm going to go on to another chirpy number, and that's resentment. Resentment is victim anger. It is a toxic, erosive emotion. You'll find that people who are resentful are consistently resentful. Remember, they will find things to project the emotion on. They don't want to, or don't know how, or they don't want to deal with it. That's too painful and too icky. Toxic resentment, resentment is victim anger. Okay? Again, usually originates in childhood when we're powerless. Resentment is, I'm powerless to change this situation. Okay? You aren't. If you're an adult, you are not powerless to change any situation. You might not like the options, but you're not powerless. And as soon as you think you are, then you are putting yourself in a victim position. So you're weakening yourself, you've given your power away, and you're going to feel vulnerable. And if you feel vulnerable, you're likely to feel angry, because that's going to make you feel stronger. Okay? I want you to start thinking about what you say to yourself. So if you say to yourself, for instance, on a regular basis, I'm stupid, that's an intellectual shame bind. If you say to yourself, I'm a bad person, or I should never have been born, that's a shame existence bind. I'm actually shaming myself for my existence. I don't deserve the space that I take up on the planet. That is almost always a childhood wound. Again, adoption creates existence shame binds. Being told you're an accident creates that. Basically being unwanted and or shamed throughout your childhood as not being enough. Okay, shame existent binds are very difficult to overcome, but it's definitely not impossible. Okay, I speak from personal experience. Unhealed emotions will result in aggression, angry people, depression, no lust for life, not living one's purpose, PTSD or complex PTSD, anxiety, codependency, love addiction, perfectionism, and many other things. But it gives you a little taste. Okay? Now, when you're doing work on yourself, and perhaps if you're watching this video later, and you feel yourself deeply yawning or burping, you might think it's a bit weird. It's actually toxic energy coming up. So please don't try and suppress it. This stuff needs to come out. Okay? Probably don't want to do it in public, but it's when you're doing the work. And the yawn is not like a normal yawn. It's a yawn that goes right down into your tummy. And when I'm with my coach, I often will have those yawns at like 30 or 40 a session. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. And yet I don't yawn before, I don't yawn afterwards. It's one of the physiological ways that I'm getting rid of stuck energy. So it's incredibly powerful. Those of you that use plant medicine, if you use ayahuasca, LSD or mushrooms, not that LSD is a plant, but it still can be used for the same thing, you will often find that purging comes up as belching and yawning. One of the other things I just wanted to mention was fear and excitement. People often get them confused. If you have a fear dealer, in other words, you've got addicted to fear, then what's happening is that you will often transmute excitement into fear. And there are people who are fearless who only get excited. So it's just, and again, there's no right or wrong. It's just, does this serve me? Does this make me a better human being? Does this make me happier? Does this take me to who I want to be? So exactly the same physiological response to fear is excitement. So if you know, when I was taking the kids on roller coasters when they were 10, and I was a lot younger, then the mouth would get dry, the heart would get faster, I'd sweat a little bit. Yeah? Was that fear or excitement? Because we're all doing it. So it depends on the story we tell ourselves. So the kids, way, come on, it's only 400 feet tall and goes at 900 miles an hour and they've got a G-force of 7. Me, I'm thinking, can I get off without having a heart attack? So guess what? My physiology, exactly the same things are happening in our body. It's just the story. I'm turning it into fear. They're turning it into excitement. Okay? So I really want you to think about that as well, because as humans, we want to have that full rainbow of emotions and feelings at our disposal. But you can see by understanding them and not confusing them, really is going to help you have a better life, become a better human being, be a better parent, be a better lover and partner. And you know, there is no downside at all. I suppose the only downside is the fear at the beginning. And I know, because I still do the work, and recently had a massive dive around my birthday, and I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified of jumping in that abyss of emotion. Even after all these years of practicing it, preaching it, teaching it, when you feel that fear, just know that's normal. You're going into somewhere that you're not sure about. Okay? That's it from me. That's everything that I want to share today about feelings and emotions. But I'd love to answer any questions you may have on this or anything else. Anybody want to talk to me? Katie, are you doing one of those? Could you unmute Katie, please? Are you there?
I am. I've unmuted myself. Don't worry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I didn't realize I could see my hand. Now, I have got a question, but I'm just thinking of how I can put it together. But you know me. So it's about, at the beginning, you're talking about anger and how we display our emotions to our children. Now, I don't want to be disconnected in that sense of how I show anger, because there's been times when I'm angry and they see that. But there's been a few experiences where, you know, you protect a child from a situation, but you don't want them to think that having I wouldn't say heated discussion, but where they know that the energy is different, that's not then me oversharing emotions. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm being clear. That, you know, my kids have seen a discussion between my parents and I.
Yeah. Get
clearer, sorry. And Amelia saw it and she said, "Oh, he's quite shouty." And I said, "Oh, we're having a discussion." But what I saw was she didn't see the makeup, which I had to go through the whole.
Okay, but children need to understand every emotion.
Exactly.
I mean, I guess the thing I would say is that when you were shouty, is it okay for Amelia to be shouting?
Yeah. No,
you're obviously learning, teaching by example.
Yeah.
And what I would personally, I would separate the two and say, darling, you know, I did get a bit overheated and shouty. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. But when mummy gets angry, what do we do when we're angry? And you know, and really try and teach her, how do we express our anger? How properly, you know, a good way.
Exactly, yeah.
One of the things that parents often do, and I was certainly guilty of it, is to hide our emotions and lie. So, you know, really upset, and my son would come in and say, "Oh, you know, mummy, are you upset?" And I'd say, "No, darling, I'm fine." Well, what I didn't realize was that I was teaching him not to trust his intuition.
Yeah.
You're much better off saying, "Oh, I do feel a bit sad, but it's okay."
Yeah.
encourage them to have an honest relationship with their emotions. Okay, so did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, the dog jumped off the stairs and it was my dad shouting. So she took that as negative, and I just said, you know, it happened. So thankfully I didn't shut it down and say, oh no, everything's fine.
If the dog jumped off the stairs, it sounds as though that was more of a shock
reaction. Yeah, big time. I mean, it was a big shout. So she connected that with her dad, and that. So I said,
so you do the separation. You just do that separation, and you start to explain. You know, we make different noises, we feel different things, behave different ways according to the situation. An emotion isn't a one-stop shop. It's going to be context dependent as well.
No, I appreciate that. It's amazing from a 3-year-old how she related her dad to my dad, and I had to say totally different scenarios. So I just wanted to check in with that.
Yeah, and I think you've done the right thing to separate it.
Great, thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. Megan, what would you like to ask me this morning?
I did have, I think you went over it a little bit, but I think when you feel a feeling, I feel like sometimes I maybe am not conscious enough to always recognize that I'm feeling a feeling, or maybe specifically what that feeling is. So I guess it's, how can you recognize more that you're feeling a feeling if you're not sure you're feeling a feeling? Does that make sense?
So the question is, why don't I feel? Why am I not feeling?
Okay.
Or why am I not recognizing it? And it's normally that we're distracted, we're numbed, or we're too fast.
Okay.
We have to slow down.
Okay.
Because all that happens is, and you'll notice that most breakdowns happen to people around 45 to 50. People call it a midlife crisis, okay? What it actually is that all the feelings that you've been able to party down, or eat down, or shag down, or drug down, or whatever it was, you can't do that anymore. You don't have the capacity to operate at that speed anymore. So they come up. So nobody's going to get off scot-free. Okay? So slow down, and you also set the conscious intention to become a master of your feelings. So every morning, just when you set your intentions, today I'm going to feel what I'm feeling. And it's a practice.
Yeah. And the other thing, it's not really a question, I guess it's just maybe if there's anything more you can explain around it, because I found it interesting, was you said about the toxic resentment. And that interests me a lot, because it's more, I guess, resentment at myself than resentment at other people. Like when I do the work, inner child work, I tend to find there's more like self-blame towards myself than there is towards other people. So I wonder, I don't know, maybe I get a little bit of the guilt of, oh, should I blame myself because that's still within the same, I don't know. It was just when you were describing the toxic resentment, it was
the first thing about guilt. So should I blame myself? Why do we have to blame anybody?
Yeah, that's true.
As soon as we put blame in there, we know that we're not in a healthy place. Two people, takes two to tango.
Yeah.
So rather than is someone guilty here, why not look at the dance that's going on? Okay. Who were you in that dance? What was it you didn't know then that you know now? What was it that you were processing unwittingly? You know, as I say, from myself, Megan, many things I've done in my history that I look back and it's like a different human being. But that was all she had to go on. Yeah. So it's going back into every memory you have, and you do that compassion piece. Okay. You know, sweetheart, Jesus, I'm so sorry that you felt that you were so worthless that you dated him. Wow. He was a lucky boy.
Okay. Yeah.
Did that answer it for you?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Anybody else got anything? Yes. Who have we got down there? Is that Leanne? Yep.
My question follows on from.
Could you shout at me, Leanne?
My question follows on from Megan's question a little bit.
Yep.
Because I also, and I'd written down about the work that you had recommended about going back and showing compassion to your former self, and I have done some inner child work, and it's interesting actually. It's the third time this week that someone's mentioned to me about doing that kind of work, but with an older self, if that was still a younger self, but older than a child. So I really want to sort of understand what I think I should be doing. When you say offering compassion, if like Megan, I think that a lot of the work that I need to do is to show compassion to myself for the way that I treated myself, and I allowed myself to be treated, and the people that I allowed to come into my life and into my children's lives. Should I be offering an apology by way of compassion? Because I feel like that's somehow tied in with blame and shame and guilt. And
I don't think it's really necessary to apologize. It's very much about saying, I don't know how the hell you achieved what you've achieved, and I'm sorry you had to go through so much pain and feel so worthless en route. I mean, it's much more that kind of dialogue. And this could be you 2 weeks ago, by the way. So we're talking about inner adults, and those of us with colourful histories. This is a long piece of work, okay? And your unconscious mind will just bring up a memory, and blimey, and just sit and do that piece of work. You can do it in the bath or sitting on the beach or whatever it is. You don't need to have a ritual around it. The important thing is that you show up and you're fully present for that part of you, that you sit with her, and that you use the thread of feeling. So whatever is the emotion is, and it might be shame, okay, that you feel the shame, that you use the thread of shame to go back to her, sit with her, hold the space for her. She might just want to feel, she just might want to be for a while, okay? We are not there to change the way she feels, and this is a really important aspect of the work. A lot of people go into their inner children or inner younger them, and they're trying to make them happy. That is not the point of the work. The point of the work is to absolve them of any guilt. They did the best they could with what they had at the time. And that's true of all of us. No, none of us, and we've all made mistakes, we've all done things, we just think, God, who was I then? None of us woke up in the morning and just thought, what, I'm going to treat myself really badly, or I'm going to cause havoc in the world.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah. Can I ask one more thing about something that I understand? And that it was when you were talking about, there's a theme here to my questions. When you were talking about road rage, I think it was, or uncontrollable rage, and you said about you'll scare other people, and you'll scare your inner child was on the list of people that you would be likely to frighten if you behaved in that way. And I don't think I had appreciated that it was possible for my actions now to damage my inner child. That had not occurred to me at all. And I just was really interested to see if you could tell me a bit more about that.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Thank you for bringing me back to that, because it's such a crucial part of our journey. So in a dialogue, you have 60 to 100,000 thoughts a day, and they reckon that about 90% of them are repetitive, okay? Now, I heard somewhere that they think that the average person, 70% of them are negative self-talk. Now, that sounds huge to me, but actually it probably isn't far off. So just imagine whatever you're saying to yourself in your head is being directed at that younger, fragile, vulnerable you. Okay, so you've got let's say a toddler or a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old in there, and in your head you say, oh, you're such a twat, what's the matter with you? You can't get anything right, don't know why you bother. You'll feel, if you have the presence of mind, you will feel her shrinking. And then when we do the inner child work, we say, well, hang on, my client said, sure, she didn't show up, Michelle. My inner child wouldn't come out to play. No, I know she wouldn't, because you've been a minx, haven't you? And you've been bad-mouthing her. You've scared the life out of her this week. So when we do that, and by the way, it's normal to a degree. Okay, we don't want to normalize a lot of it, but nobody's perfect. Go into her and apologize, and just say, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I forgot you were there for a moment. I didn't mean you know, I shouldn't have said it. A bit like we were saying with Katie, it's like, just be straight. Just say, gosh, you know, I'm doing everything I can to make you feel safe. I'm sorry, I'm sorry I screwed up there for a moment. I never swear with my inner child, by the way. So I obviously wouldn't swear at her, but even in the dialogue, I don't swear. It's very, very important. They need that safety, that cushioning. We're basically proving that we've changed. We're proving that we're now showing up for them and that we're parenting them. However neglectful or abusive our own parents were, we are taking the mantle. We are now saying, okay, I am going to mother you. Okay, and this is how we're going to do it. Okay, another piece that I really want you to just pay attention to is that holding space for her. Okay, and it might be that for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, all you do is sit with her and stroke her hair. Okay, this is not, you know, we don't need a song and dance routine. It's all about kindness and compassion. It's all about undoing what was done.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, it's really helpful. Thank you ever so. I've taken such a lot from this session today. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for showing up. Any other questions? Yes.
Can I ask you one thing, Michelle? And this is probably like a totally subject in itself, but you was talking about sort of codependent relationships and that type of stuff. Can you just like explain a bit more about like how, why, like how to recognize what to do, you know, how to...
So a codependent relationship is when you're relying on the way somebody else feels or behaves to feel good about yourself. I'm putting it in a nutshell. Okay, you're right. We probably could do with a relationship session. A codependent. So there's three types. There's codependent, which means I lose myself in you. Okay. So it means that I almost, you say, I wonder what he's thinking. I wonder what he wants for dinner. I wonder what movie we should watch. It's like we're filtering through the partner's experience rather than allowing them to speak for themselves. We're also relying on their behavior to dictate our behavior. Okay, he's upset, so I'm upset. He's angry, so I'm now scared. I can only be happy if my partner's happy. Well, that's an awful lot of pressure on your partner. Your partner's job is not to drive your emotions through their emotions. We've all got to show up interdependently, not anti-dependently. So anti-dependent is when we've been hurt a lot and it's like, I don't need anybody. You know, you're going to move a piano and somebody says, can I help you? No, there you are, sort of hauling it up the stairs by yourself. That's an anti-dependent, okay? Not healthy. And human beings are tribal creatures. The people that are insular, it's because something has snapped, something, their trust, their faith, and obviously, and sometimes internalization as well. So we've got codependent, I lose myself in you. I rely on you to let me know how I should feel. We've got anti-dependent, don't need anybody, anything, and they're often avoidance as well. And then we've got interdependent. I'm sorry about my manicurist isn't playing. Okay, and you can see there that I've still got me, you've still got you, but we cross over, and there's that lovely bit in the middle that we share. That I can bob along quite happily, you can bob along quite happily, and then we come back together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And presumably that's any type of relationship, right? It doesn't necessarily get...
Absolutely. Okay. It gets highlighted and magnified, of course, in romantic relationships because, you know, romantic relationships are tough at the best of times. Romantic relationships are there to grow us. So, of course, they're going to challenge us. But yeah, codependency is where we have a lack of self Okay, so we go into a relationship unclear, unconsciously or consciously, about who we are, our own self-worth, and therefore rely on that other person to make us feel better about ourselves.
Okay, cool.
Okay, and that is never a good idea. And this, yes, it is Natalie.
Hello.
Hello.
Going back on what Rachel said, is there a way that, there's two questions I have.
Yes.
One is when you said you can get paralyzed sometimes with the shame. I get that a lot, and I would love some advice on how to deal with that in the moment, because it's very difficult when you're in a social gathering, people you should feel comfortable with, but suddenly you feel paralyzed, and how to deal with that in the moment. And also going back to what Rachel said about codependent and also anti as well, can it be possible for them to sort of mix? Because I feel a lot of both.
Yeah, so what will happen is that you go codependent, get hurt, anti-dependent, go back into codependent. So you want the feeling, okay, of being loved and worshipped and adored and all of those things, okay? Give too much of yourself away, prove that it's not safe, and then you go into your armadillo shell.
Yeah.
Okay, and then little by little you get coaxed out, and there we go again. So what you're missing out is the interdependence, the healthy part.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it links back to what you said in the other session about panic, like waiting for someone to sort of attack you. Do you know what I mean? A couple of sessions ago you said that, and that's, I think, that links with both of them. Yeah.
So, but also so codependents normally are riddled with shame.
Right, okay.
So when you have that shame attack, when you are with people, you are expecting somebody to judge you badly, I suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which means that you're highly judgmental.
Yeah, it's true.
Work on your judgments.
Yeah.
Okay, if you judge others, you're only doing it for one reason, to make yourself feel better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you judge somebody as better than you, you're going one down. Judge them as worse than you, going one up.
Mm.
Honestly, it's a loser's game, because if you judge people, you are then expecting to be judged.
Yeah.
And the freedom, the liberation of not giving a toss what anybody thinks, I cannot tell you. And I've got a lot of years on you, but I could honestly promise you it is worth the investment in your time of doing the work.
Yeah, not care what people think. Yeah.
Okay. So when I want you to make a list of when you've had shame attacks when you're with other people, what the triggers, okay, write it down so that you can start to identify your triggers. That's going to start to show you a pattern. That's going to help you identify where you need to do the work. It's going to be in a child work. This is a childhood. This is something from your childhood.
Okay.
Okay. If you can think of times when your inner child felt shamed, go to her there. Do the inner child work there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you want a guided meditation, just email Lisa, Lisa at michellezelli.com. So that's true of anybody that needs or wants anything following up from this session. Wonder Woman will be in her hot seat and help you with anything that you want. Okay. Does that answer your question,
That's
Ashley?
really helpful. Thank you.
My pleasure. Oh gosh, I'm cooking up a storm here. It's not a hot flush, it's the beach calling.
No, I think that's it, Zelli. Amazing, as always.
Thank you. Thank you so much for showing up on this beautiful, beautiful day. Have a great day, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.